Hello, everyone. As we close out the 2021 year, we're going to do our year-end wins. We've been doing this for the last 4 years. We actually ask you, hey, you're on the path to financial independence. You started at some point and you've been with us on this journey. Share your journey with us and with the audience. We've always talked about this as a virtuous circle where, we hopefully collect the best advice from people in the financial independence community, plus our own opinions. We serve that up in a weekly format. And then it's great information, but it only works if you take action. Okay, great. You took action. What were the results? Share it with us so that others can benefit from your story, from your journey. We're going to do that again today. Welcome to the Ultimate Crowdsourced Personal Finance Show. This is ChooseFI. All right, guys, very excited to hop into this week's episode. It's one of our favorite episodes of the year to put together, and we're able to get so much feedback that we're actually breaking this up into 2 parts. You're going to get the first one today, and then make sure you check in next week for the second half of this episode. And help me with this, I have my co-host Brad here with me today. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, Jonathan, I am doing quite well. Yeah, it's amazing to think. So we recorded our first episode 5 years ago. Do you believe that? December of 2016. So it's really pretty remarkable to think that we've been going now 60 straight months recording ChooseFI episodes. And it's hard to put into words, honestly, but it's amazing. We always talk about this as the ultimate crowdsourced personal finance show. And we take that very seriously. Sure, it's great that you and I chat and have fun and people evidently get some value from that. But so much of the value is the people listening to this and what they send into us, what we can share, what we can crowdsource, and the actions they're taking, right? Because it's all well and good to take in information, but if you just sit on the couch, it really doesn't do a whole hell of a lot of good, right? It's about getting up off that couch and taking action. And that's what's so cool about these year-end episodes. So this is the now 5th time we've done this, right? And people send in these year-end wins. And it's just, it is a magical, magical thing. This is what I look forward to the most every single year for ChooseFI.
Well, if individuals have been listening to this show for years, they've actually been able to follow us on, our own journey, which we're able to share as we're experiencing this, this life towards and at financial independence. But what's really cool about that is actually even starting out with this first voicemail from Greg, you and I were trying to remember if we had in fact started it the first year of our podcast. And this first voicemail for Greg was actually what reminded us when it was. So Greg left us a year and win the first year we did it back in 2017, as he will share. And this is really an update on that. So Greg, welcome back to the show in this format. And we're excited to hear what's going on in your life.
Hey, Jonathan and Brad. This is Greg Johnson from the Denver, Colorado area, coming back to share after being originally featured in the first end of year review episode in 2017, episode 55R. A lot has changed over the past 4 years. I've gotten married, had 2 children, bought a house, changed jobs. But the one thing that has remained consistent is the foundations of FI that I learned from the both of you, all of the guests, and the ChooseFI groups along the way. In the 2017 end of year review, I listed off so many things that I had started on and changed in relation to finances that are now on autopilot as I'm able to enjoy my family and my life around me while still sticking to the 5 principles. This year, I will nearly double the amount of money I made in 2017.
Wow.
And because of that, I've maxed out my 401k, getting the full match from my employer, my Roth IRA, my HSA, and I make biweekly contributions to a few brokerage accounts that I'm using as savings accounts for my kids when they get older. Being in a fortunate position to be able to earn more and save more over the past 4 years has put me on track to reach my FI number within 4 to 9 years, depending on how the market does. But conservatively, in 9 years, by the time I turn 40, with a modest 6 to 7% rate of return. Back in 2017, I mentioned that it was my boss at the time who turned me on to the show. While that boss and I no longer work together, we still stay in touch. And one of the points of conversation that always comes up is FI and what it has allowed us to do in our lives. The ChooseFI podcast has quite literally changed my life for the better and is allowing me to help set up my kids with the tools they will need to be successful as they get older. Thank you both for all the time and long hours you put into making this show and community what it is today. Number 1 life-changing podcast? Yeah, I think so. I know I'm only one of so many that has success stories and wins to share, but just wanted to provide a little update from over the past 4 years. Keep doing great things, gentlemen.
Brad, where do we start with that? I mean, you could break it down by line. And first is just the fact that we get to follow Greg on his own personal journey, going back to episode 55R, and then look where we are, right now.
Yeah, first off, it's very cool that, like you said, Greg helped us figure out that this is the fifth time we've done this, and just amazing to follow people's journeys, right? We talk about FI. This is not a get rich quick scheme, right? It's the furthest thing from it, but it's a get rich quick-ish plan, right? Like we talk about that intermediate time frame, and it's wild to see Greg's journey follow that exact path that we talk about, right? We say pretty much anybody, within reason, can reach FI in about 15-ish years, plus or minus. But 15 is kind of a number you and I have used. And Greg is on that exact path, right? He sent that first voicemail in 4 years ago. And now he's saying between 4 and 9 years, even the most conservative, right? At 9 years, that's a 13-year journey to FI. And it's just so interesting that you and I have been doing this for so long now that we can actually follow people who are getting started with FI and now are well along that path. And like he said, doubled income, maxing out all of these retirement accounts, saving for his kids, second generation FI. Jonathan, it's got a little bit of everything, right?
It does. And there's like at least 3 things that I wanted to spend a few minutes on. I think I just hope our audience either got it on their own or will get it as a result of this ongoing conversation. One is Greg talked about this inflection point where it became autopilot, something that took some work, had to increase his knowledge base, figure out what actions to take, but now it's on autopilot and he's building on that and he has confidence in his plan and his number. That was one. 2 is these actually accounts that he had set up. And there's a little bit of a personal moment in here. You and I were heavily inspired by the financial independence community. But I think when I think of the HSA, I think of Jackie Cummings-Koski, who came on our show, really talking about the power of the 6-figure HSA and how that basically could fund all of her medical bills for life. She could be, and we've done episodes on this. People should listen to it. Brad will probably have an episode number. But I think there was around this period of time, there's a period of time where you and I did not have access to an HSA as entrepreneurs or did not have it, and then actually made the choice to get a health insurance package that had that as an option, in part because we were so inspired by this concept. And so talking about things that were hard once, but now you build a system around it, Brad, it's coming into the new year. And I know one of the first steps you take in the new year is, getting that HSA maxed out as quickly as possible. And the implications of that, now having done this for 3 or 4 years, plus the rate of returns that you've seen in the market, is that you are well on your way to having that 6-figure HSA.
Yeah, Jonathan, it's funny. As you were saying that, I was opening up my Todoist app and looking for when I have max out HSA. So I have it set up for January 5th of 2022. I don't know why I picked the 5th arbitrarily as opposed to the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, frankly. But every single year, you're right, that is maxed out. And that's something I learned from Jackie. I learned that from the Mad Scientists, right? That's what's so beautiful about this community is we are all sharing this information. And Jackie was on in episode 161. It was called Money Letters to My Daughter. And we talked about her 6-figure HSA, which is amazing. And this is, it's just such a cool journey that we're all taking together, Jonathan. And like you said, there's so much. It's a fire hose of information when you first learn about FI, right? Like this, it seems overwhelming, but then you start picking up the lingo, you start understanding, right? And then you realize, oh, wow, this is actually about simplicity. It's about setting up a system. It's about taking my brain out of this so I don't have to worry about it. It's all set up. It's on autopilot. And that's how I live my financial life. And it's cool to see Greg doing that as well. I'm glad you pointed that out.
The other thing I wanted to point out was Greg basically mentioned, and I mean, he mentioned it passing, but let's not bypass it, that between 2017 and now, he has doubled his income. And the part of that I want to focus on is actually not the fact that it's doubled right now, but that it was half of what it was back in 2017 when he made the choice to pursue financial independence. And I think one of the criticisms that we see is that this is for people who only make X amount of income, or this is for people who have a certain number of criteria. And if you don't have this, then this isn't for you. And it's a straw man. It assumes that wherever you are now is exactly where you're going to be 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years, that nothing you do can have any impact on the outcome, that your destiny is preset at birth or by college. And at that point, nothing matters. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. You can make choices that have a real impact in a short period of time on the earn more side of the equation, on the spend less side of the equation, and on the decisions with what to do with the difference, with what to do with that gap. And Greg in particular said, between what I've learned and what I've implemented on earn more and savings, I've positioned myself, and then the kids that are now part of my financial equation, it's positioned them really well. And I'm excited to get the chance to teach them what I've learned. And this is exactly it. It's not that financial independence is for anyone that meets a particular set of checkboxes. It's for everybody. It's a way of recognizing the world as it is, not necessarily as we want it to be, but as it is. And then looking through the lens of probability, what's likely to happen versus what could happen, and creating the best possible plan for ourselves with the information that we have at hand. It's not a one size fits all picture. It's going to be very nuanced depending on the situation. But this is these are the rules. These are the tools that we have at our disposal, our pillars of FI, if you will. We first talked about it in episode 21. And then the question is, like, does it matter enough to you to take action? What's your why of financial independence? And Greg can very clearly articulate that at this point. And now he's manifesting the benefits that being on this path for just 4 years has had in his life. And Brad, I'm going to add on to this that one of the ways that individuals in our audience have been able to share with us the actions that they're taking, not just maybe at the end of the year, but really throughout the year, has been through your FI newsletter, your FI Weekly. It's a newsletter you send out once a week, every Tuesday for individuals. And it's really a place that you've been able to share, what you're working on, your wins, information that you found particularly valuable over the intervening period of time. For people that are interested in being on that newsletter, you can go to choosefi.com/subscribe. But Brad, we got several wins that have been submitted. And this one, I believe, is from Allison.
Yeah, and good setup. It's, if you like this episode, if you like year-end wins, then every week, like Jonathan said on Tuesday, I send out 5 or 6 wins from the community. So we have like a weekly little bite-sized snack of this, and plus some, like you said, some additional things that I'm thinking about working on, et cetera. So yeah, it's a pretty cool way to just keep in touch with the community. So yeah, Allison wrote in saying, it seems impossible this year is almost gone. I remember looking with dread at the calendar back in January. So many more months of virtual school, a job that meant accepting constant infighting and the threat of layoffs every day, and feeling like there was no hope for change. So for the end of the year, here are the wins. 1, my kids are finally eligible for vaccination. Our younger one is high risk, so this will take a burden off of us and also will allow us to regain some normal life. 2, I found a new job, a 7% pay raise, but more importantly, a place where civility and straightforward communication is rewarded. No more fear of a knife in the back or constant worry that today is the day of layoffs. 3, my spouse and I have made great strides in talking about money, which has been hard for us. We're not perfect, and there's still more to do, but we're about 1,000% better than a year ago. 4, after years of saying I had no time, I have maintained an exercise program for about 15 months, and it feels great. 5, I'm more mindful and aware of my actions. I'm already working on my plans for 2022 to improve my life, whereas before I might have said, oh, I just try to survive day to day. Thanks for all you do and the inspiration of the community. Allison.
Yeah, there's some good themes there. One is that pivot from surviving to thriving, right? That pivot from surviving to thriving. The second is that intentionality. And the way I look at these wins is that these are themes that are building based on content and actions taken from that content. So I look at them as springboards. Pick what works for you. If one of these was a particular inspiration to you, use that as a content springboard to maybe go down and see if there's some way for you to improve, some new information that could help you figure out what that next step should actually be. So when we talk about finding a new job, getting that 7% pay raise, maybe it is salary negotiation. That's content that's been covered. Bring that into your zone of awareness. When it's talking about money, how many conversations have we had and episodes have we had, around money? When it's this state of mindfulness or intentionality, to me, the word that comes to mind is drift. If you go back just to last week's episode with Dominic Cortuccio, it was around that concept, but that was building on very explicit conversations that we've had around drift. So Allison, congrats to you and your family. And thank you so much for sharing your wins with us and with the community. All right, this next win that we got was from Hillary. And Hillary says, my husband and I started 2021 as devoted Dave Ramsey followers, and we paid off $125,000 in consumer debt in 3 years by following his plan. All right, first of all, I'm just going to break off this. That is incredible. That is gazelle intense. Well done. Congratulations. In early January of this year, someone suggested that I join the Choosify Facebook group and listen to the podcast. My husband and I started with episode 100 of the podcast, and we've been hooked ever since. You guys have drastically changed our lives, our outlooks and finances for the better. Our net worth has more than doubled since this time last year. A few things we've done since finding Choosify in January. I started a local women's group for others who are FI focused. We've formed an incredible bond over the past year, and I'm so grateful to have a community where we can discuss our financial and personal goals. My husband increased his contributions to max out his 457B. Hey, Brad, I know you're taking notes. Let's make sure we send someone to an episode where they find out why that's such a big deal. We had no idea how lucky we were to have one through his employer until we listened to episode 13. Oh, well, she solved it for you.
Yeah, there's my homework. Thank you, Hillary.
We parted ways with our financial advisor and transferred our IRAs to Vanguard to manage for ourselves. We opened a non-retirement brokerage account through Vanguard. We doubled our emergency fund. We took advantage of the child care FSA offered through my employer. We started meal planning and cut our monthly grocery bill in half. We recently downloaded Laura's cookbook and love it. The chicken shawarma and the chicken and wild rice soup are our favorites. Brad, I'll let you insert a comment there. Another vote for chicken shawarma.
Yeah, it's amazing. Everybody seems to love that meal. That's a top 5 meal for me for sure. And yeah, if you're interested in that free PDF download, this is my wife Laura put together. It's basically our top, I think there are 30 recipes in there, and they're all for roughly $2 per person per meal. They're the really curated recipes that we've worked on, that Laura's worked on, and I've just eaten. I've been the lucky beneficiary for 15 years now. So choosify.com/meals, and that'll get you the PDF download.
We've heard a lot about inflation in the media, and I'll have to say that these meals have been somewhat inflation resistant. So, pay attention. The price per serving is really good on these. So check it out. We switched from an unlimited data plan with Verizon to an unlimited data plan with Visible, which uses Verizon's towers, and we're receiving the same service and coverage, but now paying $1,200 less a year for it. Wow. Yes. And so for individuals that have not heard of, I believe they're called MTVNOs or MTVOs, something like that. But anyways, there's a lot of these services that are out there. You want to do a little research when you pick which one you go with, because they're in your area, but they basically piggyback on the main provider services, and you can massively, massively decrease your cell phone bill. We were previously anti-credit card. After hearing your episode on travel rewards, we each opened the Chase Sapphire Preferred when the sign-up bonus was 100,000 points. And we've also referred several friends. We have well over 200,000 points to apply towards a family trip to Europe next summer. While we were following Dave's plan, we were focusing all of our efforts on paying off our mortgage as quickly as possible. And now we've switched gears and we're saving for a down payment on our first rental property, so increasing our cash flow opportunities. Those are just a few of the steps we've taken in the past 11-ish months. And my favorite thing about Choosify is that it's not a one-size-fits-all plan. There's no right or wrong way to do it. We just have to work a little smarter and make the decisions that fit best for our family. I'm grateful we found you guys in this community this year. I'm excited to see how much more we can accomplish in 2022. Thanks again. Hillary, thank you for weighing in. And Brad, I tried to weave in a bunch of the comments there, but there's a lot to digest. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for people to really use this win as a springboard for their own journey.
Yeah. There's so much here. I mean, Jonathan, we could spend 10 minutes on each of these emails. It's crazy. I mean, doubled their net worth since this time last year, right? Looking at this as, like Hillary said, there's no right or wrong way. This is a very personal journey, and you take the actions and the steps that work for you and your family. And that's what's so cool about this, right? And it's also about maybe learning something new, right? Rethinking, like Hillary said, they were devoted Dave Ramsey followers. And like you and I have said many times, Dave Ramsey does remarkable things for millions and millions of people. And that is an amazing on-ramp to personal finance and getting out of debt. But then, as long as you're open-minded, you can learn new things, right? They were previously anti-credit card, but now because they're out of debt, they're responsible with credit cards, their financial house is in order, they can take advantage of things like the Chase Sapphire Preferred sign-up bonus when it jumps up to an all-time high, right? And now, in all likelihood, they're going to get, it looks like 3 or 4 round-trip flights to Europe for free next year, just by being a little bit smarter. So that's what's so cool about FI is A, it's a smorgasbord. You can pick whatever you want to work on. But B, it is just about really thinking and planning and figuring out, hey, what do I want to do? Right. And I mean, down to Hillary started a local women's group for 5 focused people to have community. Right. Jonathan, how many times have we said how essential community is? Right. So it's neat to see these people who are listening. Right. How many podcasts? I know I listen to dozens of podcasts, and how many of them actually make me take action? It's very, very few. And that's what's just so amazing about our community is people really are changing their lives. And yeah, this is a prototypical case of that.
Yeah. And speaking of bi-weekly emails, we got one from Kieran, and I believe he doubled his salary.
Yeah, this is becoming a theme here. This is amazing. So Kieran wrote in a few end of year wins to celebrate. In 2021, my wife and I started actively designing our lifestyle. For the first time, we sat down not only to discuss what we wanted our life to look like, but how we were going to make it happen. As a result of those conversations, I changed careers with the help of the Talent Stacker Salesforce Career Development Program. So Jonathan, you're gonna love hearing about this, right? I more than doubled my salary in about 5 months, and am much more confident in, challenged by, and excited by my work. I work remote full time and have great flexibility in when and where I work. This transition enabled us to purchase a house in a great neighborhood and adopt a dog. Can you say intentional lifestyle inflation? Nice. I've greatly enjoyed fixing up the house and making the space our own. All this while still meeting most of our savings goals. Most of these wins are thanks to the two of you and the community you have nurtured. A huge thank you and cheers to a new year. Goodness.
It is something. So when I started working on this career development program with Bradley Rice, who actually was a former guest on the show, it's how I got introduced to him, and he was sharing how Salesforce had transformed his life. The inspiration for this was him just telling me, like, I was asking him offline, like, is this really replicable? Like, could anybody pivot into this and pivot into it quickly and what sort of results would they expect? And he expressed to me with total confidence, yes. It's a massively underserved niche. It's incredibly in demand. There's a talent gap, and you can train into it super quickly. You don't need school to give you permission. You just have to be able to. There's a gap between, like, I think everybody wants to know, like, what have you done, right? It's not what degree do you have, but what experience that you have. And I think that's the biggest bridge. How can you bridge that gap? And so I was like, all right, so Bradley, what would it look like to solve that? So if anybody did want to break in, they could do it really, really quickly. And we built that program out. And I would say at this point, we've had quite literally hundreds of members from the Choosify community decide to go down that journey and check it out and make that transition. And the results are, it's replicable. I don't know how to overstate this, that you can find out anybody that's gone through this path. Like it just works as advertised. And Brad, I'll give this back to you, but I will just say we did build out, so we have a paid program to show people how to do it, but we'd also build out just like a free 5-day challenge, because some people have never even heard of Salesforce. Like, well, what is Salesforce? Which is what this career development program is built around, getting into a Salesforce career. We just build a free 5-day challenge, and it's by miles the easiest on-ramp to just find out whether this career might be a good fit and how you could do this. Either, you really, frankly, you could take the content that we show you in the 5-day challenge and you could just do this on your own completely for free. It's all there. So if you're interested in that, just go to choosify.com/Salesforce and it'll give you a little more information on that. Brad, back to you, man.
Yeah, and Jonathan, when you first brought that idea up, I was leery because I didn't know if it was replicable. But I see, literally, it's funny, in my 5-weekly that I sent out today, one of the wins, like I mentioned, we have a little bite-sized win. Steve wrote in saying, my 1% better is I started my new job as a Salesforce business analyst after completing the Talent Stacker program. This job pays 50% more than my previous job, and I know we'll go up from there. And I mean, Jonathan, I've gotten dozens of those. So yeah, I mean, it really, really works.
There's a little, and I just want to put, there's a little bit of a firewall here between me and Brad on this one. So Brad, it's a good thing. So Brad is getting these emails And he's seeing it like completely separate from the program. He's just seeing actual feedback from people that have gone through it, which is very gratifying to hear that. And I actually wanted to piggyback on this for individuals. It goes back to that idea. And I think it's the thing I want to take the snap. I want to take a punch at the most is that people say this is for people who make XYZ. Like you can't do anything about your income. Like there's nothing you can do. All people have no choice. It's just whatever you're making is what you're making. And also the suggestions that say you need to go through some sort of penance at a $15 an hour job, or if you're a college grad that has $100,000 in student loan debt, you got to pay your dues and take on the student loan debt, and then work your first 4 years making $40K a year. Like that's the norm. No, like question everything, but you don't have to you don't need to find the path yourself. People have already done it. People have already questioned. And they've already found and I'm not just this, but in other areas of life, in every area of life, they found these optimizations, some of them small, some of them massive. And if you're just willing to pay attention, do your due diligence, and then take action, you can, just massively transform the trajectory of your life. Doubling your income massively transforms your financial trajectory. All right, this next win is from Chris, shared this voicemail with us.
Hey, Jonathan and Brad, Chris here. Just wanted to call in with a year in summary for everything I've accomplished on my journey to FI in 2021. For background, I'm a 27-year-old lieutenant in the Navy stationed at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. My wife is a quality control lab and field technician in the asphalt industry. We have one rental property, which is the home we lived in during my last tour in Pensacola, Florida. Hopefully this doesn't run too long, since we've done quite a bit this year. But without further ado, let's jump into it. First of all, I found your podcast. I discovered the Greater Fire community in November last year and was initially working with Mr. Money Mustache, the Mad Financist, and the Simple Path to Wealth as my foundation. I was on a submarine deployment from February to June this year and loaded my phone up with all the financial independence ebooks I could get my hands on. One of those books happened to be Choose FI, Your Blueprint to Financial Independence. After reading it, I couldn't wait to get back to the surface so I could start binging the podcast. From then to now, I've gotten up to episode 104 and listened to new episodes as they come out. You guys are practically part of the family in our house now. Now for the financial stuff. We paid off my wife's car, which freed up $325 a month. When my $600 Island Beater died, I upgraded to a wonderful little 2004 GMC Canyon for $6,000 cash. Now, having the title for my wife's car, we adjusted our insurance, taking our monthly payment for both cars from $115 a month to $45 a month. And this year alone, we paid off over $41,000 in debt, much of which was high-interest consolidation loans and personal loans from our more irresponsible past. Closing those accounts has freed up hundreds of dollars every month. Except for our mortgage, all that's left now is about $20,000 in low-interest student loans. With us being in the 22% tax bracket, pre-tax investing will take precedence over those loans next year. Once we max out our accounts, we are going to crush those loans in a most expeditious manner.
Expeditious.
Speaking of pre-tax investing, I maxed out my traditional TSP and both of our traditional IRAs.
Nice. Being
in the 22% bracket, that's $6,930 we don't owe in taxes this year. We weren't able to put much in my wife's 401k because of the previously mentioned debt paydown, but it will be easy next year. We've cut back on our eating out habits significantly this year, saving us hundreds of dollars a month. I'm a Taco Bell fiend, but even it isn't worth selling days of my future for. On the topic of food, we've started buying almost all of our food from Costco. We only go to the neighborhood Safeway now for more special ingredients and condiments that you can't get at Costco. This also saves us hundreds of dollars a month. We've also quit drinking energy drinks and switched to only drinking coffee that we make at home. The energy drinks were a terrible habit. With me drinking 2 or 3 a day and my wife drinking 1 or 2, we were spending over $120 a month, and that's at wholesale prices. Now, our caffeine intake only costs us $10 to $15 a month. Our bodies are just as happy as our wallets on this one. Moving on from food, we've switched our cell phone plan over from unlimited with Verizon to Google Fi's flexible plan. This saves us between $60 and $80 a month, depending on our data use. Google Fi is so much better than Verizon when I have to go to other countries for work, too.
100%.
My phone keeps working like it would at home, with unlimited text and a small price per minute for calls. Verizon would charge $10 per day that I use my phone at all in another country, even if I only sent a single text message. Another surprisingly big one is that we stopped feeding the birds in our yard. There were so many birds that we were spending $80 a month on birdseed.
The birds are like, what gifts,
Now
man?
we're saving those $80
Yeah, poor
instead,
birds.
and as a nice side perk, our fence and deck appreciate not being drenched in bird poop. Even without us putting food out, there's still beautiful bird songs all around our house for us to enjoy every day. We've gone all in on travel hacking this year, taking full advantage of the free premium cards for me and my wife while I'm still in the military. We've accumulated about 500,000 points across
Wow.
various programs this year and plan on getting the famed Companion Pass next year.
Oh, yeah.
Now, for my personal favorite financial hack I pulled off this year. I heard about this for the first time in episode 26R in a voicemail from Noah from Money Metagame, and I've actually never heard it discussed by anyone since. I closed the escrow account for the mortgage for our rental property and will now pay property tax and insurance myself. This is cool for two big reasons. One, not having an escrow payment has freed up over $400 each month of cash flow that I can now invest instead of it sitting in the mortgage company's pockets all year getting zero interest. The second cool thing that goes hand in hand with travel hacking is that I can pay my property tax and insurance bills with credit cards. At a total expense of about $3,000 a year in our case. That's an amazing way to make progress towards your next credit card sign-up bonus. That's all the financial stuff that comes to mind for this year, but there's more. I started using Todoist, which has been an absolute game changer. I swear, my productivity has increased tenfold. The projects sharing feature is cool too, because either me or my wife can check off an item and it disappears for both of us, which is great for recurring chores that either of us might deal with. I also got a library card this year and started reading. I don't think I need to explain all the great benefits there are to be had there. Finally, I joined the Honolulu local Choose FI group. I've only been able to make it to one meetup, but at that one, I had the opportunity to meet Doug Nordman and Rich Carey, along with many other great
That's a
people from
solid
the
group.
local community. It was truly amazing to finally have a sense of solidarity in person for this unconventional path we're on. It's been a busy year, so I'm sure I missed some small stuff, but I think I covered all the big ones. If you play this, I'll unfortunately be on a submarine again by the time it airs. However, I know my wife will be listening. So, Evelyn, I love you so much. I can't wait to come home and hit the ground running for all the next steps in our journey. To Evelyn and the Choose FI community, I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas and an awesome New Year's. And finally, to the Choose FI team, thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you do. It has had a profound impact on my life, and I know there are many stories like my own. See you guys next year.
That is amazing, Chris. And to Evelyn, my brother's also deployed right now. To all the military individuals that are overseas or deployed, and to their spouses that are holding down the fort. And Merry Christmas. We love you guys. We appreciate you. We're so grateful for what you're doing, and thank you for your service as well.
Yeah, here.
Wow, Chris, there was a lot there. You know, I think our most unexpected win of 2021 was the fact that we don't have to clean the bird poop off the off the back porch anymore. And you know what I like to think, Brad, is that these birds are being forced away from maybe a slightly more processed diet and back to the worms to which God intended.
Yeah, back to the land. Back to the land.
Back to the land. They're taking a Liver King approach to this whole thing, and that's just fantastic.
Oh goodness, Chris, this was such a great voicemail, and yeah, I love that Evelyn's going to hear this while you're literally underwater, and yeah, it's just
Physically, not financially.
Thing. Yeah, right. Physically, not financially, and yeah, a lot of stuff in there. So local groups, choosefi.com/local. If you're listening to this and you're not a part of your local group, we have 300 of those groups spread all throughout the world. So check it out. I know when I went to Hawaii, I didn't get a chance to meet up with the Honolulu group, but I met up with the Maui group. Yeah, it's a really neat way to get involved in this community.
Let's just take a half second and talk about the escrow idea. Just in passing here, I just want to point out to individuals. So what you're doing, you have to pay the money regardless, right? It's just a matter of timing. Do you want the bank to collect it for you, or do you want the chance to save it yourself and then pay it out when it's actually due? So the thing that you have to keep in mind is, one, you got to save it because you're going to regret it if you don't have that money ready to grow. Two, if you want to hold on to it for the purposes of investing, you're going to want to have it in something more than just a savings account, right? Where you're making 0.001%, because it's not like at the time Noah was doing it. I think savings accounts were still giving around 1 to 2%. So it's a very, very, very safe investment. So what are you investing in that's giving you a return? Because you also don't want to have this money invested and then it go down 5 or 6 or 7%. And then you need the money to go, pay that. So just a point of consideration. And then the last thing I'll say on that is the credit card thing is huge and can certainly be worth it when you're using a sign up bonus strategy for credit cards, but it's not free. It's a highly valuable strategy, especially if you're targeting sign up bonuses, but you just need to be aware that the government or state, whoever it is that is going to be processing the payment, if you want to use a credit card, they are going to charge you a fee to use their credit card. They're not, because the way credit cards work is the end user gets what they were supposed to get minus some bit that the credit card is holding out. That's how credit cards make money, by processing payments. The government's not going to accept anything less than what they feel that they're owed. So they're going to extend that surcharge to you. You might get hit with a 1.5%, convenience fee is what they might call it. So it can still be worth it, depending on the size of the bonus and what you're going for. But just be aware, on a $1,000 bill, you have a 1%, 1.5% fee. You're going to pay, what is that, Brad? Is that an extra
10 or 15 bucks?
10 or 15 bucks that you wouldn't have paid otherwise. Thank you.
Right.
I would have struggled.
quick public math,
Yep.
right? But no, it's a great point, right? If you are going to not hit a credit card bonus, and paying that little fee will get you there, or might get you an completely extra credit card bonus, I think very clearly the bonus, which is probably going to be worth between $500 and $1,500, will far, far, far outweigh the $50, $75 fee that you're probably going to pay on a $3,000, let's say, expense, right? So in this case with your local tax jurisdiction or whatever. So yeah, it's you obviously have to go in knowing all the information, but yeah, it's cool that Chris and Evelyn, I guess they earned 500,000 travel rewards
I think they're
points.
doing the math just fine. And
I think they're doing okay. So for anybody out there that is interested, chooseavida.com/travel, and that will send you to our the episodes we've had on travel rewards, our free travel course, and our top recommended credit card. So yeah, chooseavida.com/travel. But yeah, Jonathan, Chris hit a whole lot of things, right? Todoist, which is near and dear to my heart, has changed my life. The library, obviously, right? Being aware of their tax rate, because pre-tax versus post-tax, when you put things into a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, if you're at a 0% federal tax bracket, right, then putting into a traditional IRA and getting a tax deduction now doesn't help you any, right? But maybe if you're in the 10%, the 12%, you still say, all right, that's not a huge savings, but you start getting into 22% and higher. Okay, now you're talking, right? But more importantly, again, this is a very personal decision. It's not my place to say what tax rate makes sense to do traditional or Roth, but just being aware of that. I think that's the key. So it was super cool that Chris really, really mentioned that a couple times there.
All right. So we are going to conclude the first part of our end of year wins episode with this email that we got from Kathy. Kathy says, Brad, I chose the word financial for 2021. I started with refinancing my mortgage and took out cash to pay back my parents part of the down payment I'd borrowed to buy my house after my divorce. Second, I saved and scrimped and paid off my car. Third, I fully funded $7,000 my regular IRA for 2020. Fourth, I fully funded another $7,000 for a Roth IRA. Fifth, I restarted contributions to my 403B. I'm a teacher. Sixth, I started the 457. There it is again. Everybody pay attention, especially you state public employees, firefighters, police officers, teachers, hospital workers that work for the state. Like, a lot of you have access to this. It's worth paying attention to. Check out for episode 13 for more information. Seventh, I started a VTSAX account. Eighth, I transferred an annuity with American Fidelity into Vanguard. 9, I had another annuity with an insurance company that I dissolved, transferred into my Vanguard accounts. 10th, I bought back a year I'd had off for maternity leave from my previous district to add back the CALSTRS, something that I...
Yeah, so that's a pension.
Oh,
So
okay.
she bought back a year of service, I guess.
11, I started a vegetable garden and grew loads of tomatoes, squash, and herbs. 12th, I joined my local Buy Nothing group and have both given and received amazing things. 13, I started doing swag bucks. I bought it and fetched to earn gift cards for groceries. 14, speaking of groceries, I go once or twice a month to shop only. Wow, that's amazing.
Nice.
Which is cut down on spending. 15, I take my lunch to work every day. I'm a single mom with twins in college and a senior in high school. I'd love to retire from teaching and go into some other line of work. And here's a list that, so, all right, 2021, here's what I've done. 2022, here's what I'm considering. Self-publishing the book I wrote on frugal living, starting a blog, creating a website, perhaps selling printables of the tools I've created for myself to be financially accountable and reach my goal. Maybe rent out my house. My elderly dad would like for me to move in as he's lonely, sell some unnecessary items I own, perhaps either change school districts or add a part-time job. Wishing you the best. And so it sounds to me like Kathy is really incorporating this idea of the bold move. And we talked about it last week with Dominic Cortuccio. I don't know if she's using mentally that framework, but it sounds like 2022 is the year of the bold move for Kathy. And it's really cool to look back and say, here's what I've accomplished. All right, now let's take that baseline that we put in place and say, what do we want to do? What do we want to do with our next chapter? So I hope, Brad, I hope everybody listening to this found inspiration. And I hope they'll check in with us, as we wrap up this episode next week. We also wrap up the year, bringing this year to the close and opening up the doors to 2022. All right, my friends, the fire is spreading. We'll see you next time as we continue to go down the road less traveled.